Now, let's bring in my panel, and joining me tonight, thrilled to have National Senator M.Canavan, as well as Melbourne Lord Mayor Nick Rees. Gentlemen, welcome. Now, guys, had a chat about this in the editorial, and that's the big infighting within the Liberal Party between Alex Hawke and Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price. Matt, I know that you're going to be reluctant to talk about this too much and engage in this, but do you think that Jacinta Nampijinpa-Price should offer up an apology on her remarks from last week to draw a line under a debate, which I frankly think has been going on for far too long here?
Look, mate, I want to support all members of my team, both Jacinta and Alex, important members of the coalition, so I don't want to get in between either of them. Look, I think Jacinta does great work. Alex is a senior member of the Liberal Party team. Look, I'll leave it up to Jacinta what she wants to say in response to it.
Fair enough.
As you say, it's been going on, I think, for long enough. I think what we need to get back to here is the core reason for why we're talking about this. The reason we're talking about this is because the Prime Minister hasn't done what he said he would do. Last year, he promised the Australian people that he would halve migration. He hasn't got anywhere close to it. We haven't got the final figures, but at least he's 100,000 odd people over what he promised to bring migration numbers down to. And that's a big reason for why a lot of young people can't afford a home. It's a big reason why we're seeing congestion on our streets. It is a big reason why our hospitals can't seem to see people in any reasonable amount of time. We've had a 6% increase in our population since COVID. Hospital beds have only grown by 3%. So they're the issues that I think we should focus on and certainly not worry about each other. Look, it's done and dusted. As I say, I want to focus on the people out there that are listening to your program, not all the various people in my team.
Yeah, well, Matt, I think you're right. I think this has gone on for far too long here. I mean, the remarks were made on Thursday. It's now Monday night. We're going to have another news cycle tomorrow on this. But Nicholas Rees, come on now. You are the mayor of Melbourne here, and this is a city that is undergoing all sorts of population pressures itself. Labor has not shown any bottle when it comes to doing anything about this. Surely as a Lord Mayor, seeing the impacts on the ground of growth in population without adequate infrastructure, this is a big problem.
Well, James, I mean, I think Australia is the most successful immigration nation in the world. We're the most successful multicultural nation in the world. I think Australia can be bigger and better, and I think Melbourne, my hometown, can be bigger and better as well. And I think, the LNP, Liberal National Party, in the last couple of days has kicked yet another spectacular home goal. I mean, not content with losing the last election by a record amount, having successfully alienated, female voters, Chinese voters, inner city voters, public servants, they're now gone and alienated the Indian community of Australia. At the City of Melbourne, we've got Rashina Campbell as our Deputy Lord Mayor. She's a Liberal, and you could not find a harder working, smarter, more community-minded person in the ranks of Australia's elected officials. She also happens to be someone of Indian cultural background and, as I said, a Liberal. And, now she's being told by other senior people in the LNP political movement that people like her are part of some sort of Labor Party stack in this country. I mean, can it get any worse for the Liberal and Conservative side of politics?
Well,
may be any more stupid in what they are doing in this country.
Sure. Look, I get the outrage, and I get you're trying to make a big point about this, but at the same time, we keep hearing this sort of idea that we're the most successful multicultural nation in the world. And yet, Nick Rees, I keep seeing every week, I see these ethnically based protests tearing apart our cities. I saw people duking it out on Bondi Beach yesterday. I see, people duking it out in the streets. I see anti-Semitic attacks. And I see people saying, maybe we need a bit of a pause and reflect and recalibrate what we're all about here, because we can't keep saying that, Nicholas Rees, when all of this stuff is going on in our streets.
Look, I mean, I think we all saw the scenes on Bondi Beach, and they were disturbing. I'm not sure if it was Israel versus Gaza or Lakemba versus Bondi. I think there was multiple friction points at work there. But I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that immigration has helped build this nation. I mean, I came to Australia from another country, James.
So did I.
We've worked hard and we've built a great country together. And yes, I do agree with you on this point, James. We need to have a well-managed, controlled immigration system. I think that is absolutely critical. And I say that.
Nicholas, can I pause you there? I want to pause you there, Nick, because M.Canavan and Party Central there wants to jump in here. What were you going to say there, Matt?
Yeah, I'm at Party Central here in Billawheeler. It's going off here on a Monday night at Billawheeler Hotel. It's probably more life than down in Melbourne. Sorry, Nick. I think you guys have recovered. Sorry, I got to get that dig in there. But look, it's not being well managed at the moment. And I think people are sick and tired of the Labor Party thinking a slogan is substitute for good policy. We keep hearing that, we're the best multicultural country in the world. We're built on immigration. Yeah, but how does that relate, again, going back to what the Prime Minister promised he'd do? We continue to have record numbers of people arrive here. And what we need to do is have policies that actually make people's lives better. Saying that migration is great, saying that multiculturalism is fantastic, does not help people who can't see a doctor in their hospital. It does not help people whose kids can't afford a home. And so fix that problem. Just focus on that. It doesn't help the fact that we are being pulled apart by all these ethnic divisions. I just think our welcome mat here is being worn out. Nick is right that traditionally we've done a very good job. But that doesn't mean, just because we've done a good job at taking in migrants in the past, there's no guarantee that that's going to continue in the future, particularly if we keep taking in at a rate of 500,000 new people in net terms a year, a whole city of Canberra every year. We just can't do that. And then we will become a much less cohesive society if we continue like this. We'll become like the UK is at the moment and parts of Europe. I don't want that to happen here. So we've got to get this genie back in the bottle ASAP. We've got to bring these numbers back down, as the Prime Minister promised he would do, and have a much more manageable migration program for our country's needs.
I'll tell you what, Matt, I'm just hoping that some joker there at the Billawheeler Hotel doesn't ask them to put on Eagle Rock, because that could be absolute chaos here on live TV. But Nicholas Rees, I think Matt makes a very good point here. And I want to go back to these protests in Bondi. We saw those. How long is this going to go on? And let me ask you this as a mayor, because we had a big talk about this today at my other workplace about, do we need to say some places like Bondi Beach, like the Harbour Bridge, they're exclusion zones. You're not allowed to protest at these really iconic sites. Go have a protest somewhere else, but please stop hijacking our national symbols, which Bondi Beach is one of them, for your own causes.
Oh, I think you've got to be very careful in this space, James. I do think these protests cause enormous inconvenience, and I would like to see them better managed. But once you start, saying things like you can't protest in these iconic locations, I do worry that you're starting to get onto a slippery slope. So, it starts with Bondi Beach, and then you're going to say Sydney Harbour, then you're going to say Bourke Street, Melbourne. Before you know it, you can't protest in this country anymore. So I think you've got to be really careful.
You're not allowed to go into Parliament House and start protesting. The politicians don't want to get interrupted. All right, you got to get approval. You can go do it in the mall in the front of Parliament House. We've got to get approval for that. You can't just rock up in Parliament House and do it. Why should you be able to rock up at the Sydney Harbour Bridge? It's a major thoroughfare. Do you think people should be able to protest down the Bruce Highway?
It's
just ridiculous.
I do take
reasonable restrictions here.
I do take Nick Rees's concerns, because while we talk about the concerns we have about becoming like Britain with all of the protests and the division and a lot worse they have there, I also worry about free speech a bit. But gents, I want to move on to, because there's so much else. A little while ago, former Prime Minister John Howard was on Sharri Markson's program. He slammed the Albanese government's net zero obsession. Here's a little of what he had to say.
I think the world is making a mistake by sort of going overboard about climate change. What I mean by that is that I'm not persuaded that the world will come to an end if we don't reduce carbon emissions in a radical way.
Yeah. So abandon net zero, the 2050
Well, that
targets.
means that I'm doubtful that net zero is worth the price we're paying for it.
Lord Mayor Nicholas Rees, let me ask this of you. Will the world come to an end if Australia doesn't meet its climate reduction targets?
Well, I mean, John Howard, he just keeps on giving for the Liberal Party, doesn't he? Not content having lost the 2007 federal election by refusing to commit Australia to the Kyoto target, he now wants the Liberals to lose the next election by walking away from the Paris climate emission targets. I mean, the fact
I'm
is,
not sure.
a commitment to net zero
2007
by 2050, a commitment to net zero by 2050 shows that you are a political party that believes in modernity, that you believe in progress and doing Australia's fair share to meeting our requirement to get to net zero so that we stop the environmental damage to our planet as a result of excessive fossil fuel and carbon emissions.
Nicholas Rees, I was working in Parliament House in 2007. I don't recall that election being about Kyoto. I think it was more about work choices and the it's time factor. But Matt, what do you reckon? How do you remember that?
Well, I don't think there's many politicians around that have a better sense of the thoughts of the Australian people than John Howard. I still think he absolutely does it. And the way he sums it up there, is it worth it? That's ultimately the question that has to be asked here when the rest of the world is not pursuing net zero. So it's not going to lead to the environmental benefits that Nick is trying to hoodwink into people into thinking that will happen. That won't happen if we act on our own. But of course, we'll be left with the enormous costs of reaching net zero. We know those costs now are very high because the promises that were made to us when we signed up to net zero have not been delivered. A bit like the migration story I said before, the Prime Minister promised to cut our power bills. He promised that we'd have thousands of new jobs in new industries like hydrogen, and I'm here right here in the centre of that in central Queensland, where we were promised a hydrogen hub. We promised we'd have these thousands of jobs, and we've just been deserted by a Labor Party that makes promises and then just leaves people to pick up the pieces. And so why should we have to pay these enormous costs in our country if it's not going to lead to any environmental benefits? This ridiculous idea that unless we hit net zero emissions in 2050 at a precise time, the world's going to end. We're not part of the modern world, apparently. I mean, give me a break.
I mean,
hang on, sorry. No.
People just want their lives made better, Nick. They can't afford their groceries. They're struggling to pay their mortgage. Their lives are much, much worse than they were just a few years ago. And you have these stupid slogans that mean nothing to anybody. Just do things that help people improve their lives, and the government is not doing that for us right now.
Well, exactly.
This is the great thing about democracy, isn't it? I mean, Matt is entitled to have these extremist views on climate policy because he's part of a minor party in Australia. But for John Howard, former leader of the Liberal Party, if you want to be a credible, mainstream, electable political party in Australia and take government,
Nick,
then you can't have the sort of policies that Matt is espousing.
It's an absurd idea, Nick. I mean, are we that much different, Nick? Are we that much different? Are we that much different from England, from America, from Canada, from Germany, from France? In all of those countries, the political parties that are leading their polls, and not just leading them, absolutely blitzing their opposition, are all against net zero.
And this is the thing.
And so are we that much different from those countries? I mean, let's have the debate. The problem is the Australian people haven't been given that choice yet. We've taken net zero to the last two elections. There have been political catastrophes. Maybe we should do something different. Maybe outside of politics should do something different than just aping and imitating the Labor Party. Because I think our way of winning elections has to be different from how the Labor Party or Greens does it. We need to focus back on making our country economically stronger. If we do that, we'll maximise our chances of winning.
Nicholas Rees, let me ask you this. Sorry, Nicholas Rees, let me ask you this here. From a political point of view, how do you manage to keep selling people on net zero when Australia emits 1% of the world's emissions and you keep saying, oh, renewables, they're the cheapest form of power? Well, like my power bills have practically doubled in the last few years. I don't know about yours. How do you keep selling this?
I'm sorry, James. This has got to be the weakest argument that is run by climate change sceptics. We say, Australia's only 1% of the world's emissions, therefore we have no role to play in trying to help the world get to net zero. I'm sorry, we've all got a role to play. Australia is one of the most advanced, most prosperous nations in the world. We should be able to step up.
We've got to hit a break.
That's all I'm saying.
Gentlemen, we're going to hit a break. We can keep the debate going on. I love this lively debate. Stick around because we're going to have a lot more of this after the break. A lot more debate from our great duo here tonight. A lot more to come up, including Adam Bant's new role and the ongoing crime crisis in Victoria. Wonder what that's all about. Wonder what Nicholas Rees will have to say. Stay tuned.
I remember as a school kid, the really smart kids headed straight off to the mines to have real life experiences. For many, going to the bush was a rite of passage, and rightly so.
Communities that make up regional Australia are as diverse as our landscapes.
You've gone to every bush summit. You must love it. There's not many votes here for you. Why do you do it?
It's always fantastic to get out and about and talk to people.
And this is the place where people come with big dreams.
From Broome to Mount Gambier to Woomba to Wagga Wagga, Ballarat and here in Darwin. It's a 2025 Bush Summit. It's a true showcase of the best of this country and the challenges it faces.
The national sweep of bush summits wouldn't be possible without the support of Hancock Prospecting and Kidman.
Reminding politicians, the media and the wider business community that there is an Australia beyond the capital cities.
I read a story that said that Darwin was the worst place on earth.
Anyone who's come here and had a perception about the place leaves completely changed.
Many of us here today share one thing in common. We love the bush.
Our operations continue to pay billions of dollars to go towards essential services.
It's a fantastic thing for regional New South Wales. It illuminates the role that regional Australia plays in the birth of our modern nation.
Thank you to all our partners and contributors who supported Bush Summit 2025. We hope you can join us again next year.
Go Harvey Norman hot deals on laptops. Save $120 on this Acer Aspire Lite with 15.6-inch screen, just $328. Or save $200 on this Acer with a massive 16GB RAM, now $698. Best prices guaranteed at Harvey Norman now.
Go! To avoid digital threats, just turn on NordVPN. Improve your protection against trackers, malicious websites, and malware-ridden downloads. Get the deal now.
What doing?
Washing machine's broken, Moose.
But squeaky.
Don't worry, we'll sort it. Squeaky will be fine.
Okay.
Should be squeaky clean.
No worries, Squeaky. I love you.
I love you too.
Poor Squeaky. ClearScore have personalised credit card and loan offers, so you'll be able to get a new washing machine. ClearScore, best friend for your finances.
I know you're not satisfied anymore, and there's a reason why I've lost interest in this. And it's not because you keep bringing up the fact I've lost 2 grand finals. And it's not because I'm on that show that's just ruined my credibility. It's because I'm a chafer.
Is that 2 Fs?
Good, wait till I tell Maddie. Fletch, Heidi, I have a solution for you. Step-on underwear. Perfect for all the busted old athletes that have let themselves go.
What a hotel.
Right? And only $370 a night on my favorite site.
What? You didn't check Trivago?
I got mine for $250. You have to check Trivago.
Oh, yeah? Prove it.
On Trivago, you can compare hotel prices from multiple different sites.
Even your favorite one.
Yeah, see? Same hotel. $120 less.
You didn't check Trivago?
I didn't check Trivago.
Check Trivago to compare prices and save up to 30%. Hotel? Trivago.
Hey, welcome back to Paul Murray Live. I'm your host tonight, James Morrow, while Paul recovers from a bit of a lurgy. Now, joining me tonight is, as you may have seen from before the break, National Senator M.Canavan and Melbourne Lord Mayor Nick Rees. Gentlemen, so much more to talk about. We've had such a great, robust conversation about climate and immigration and everything like that. But let's talk about crime. Now, Nick, as the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, I want to get your thoughts on, because we've had some really devastating stories lately, including these 2 boys who were stabbed in the sort of Cobblebank over the weekend. Victorian opposition leader Brad Batten has linked the fatal stabbing to the state's weak crime laws, saying that the crime crisis has, in fact, due to the fact that people are dying in the streets. We've had 25 deaths from knife crime here in the state in the last 5 years. But Nicholas Rees, what is going on here? Because we've also seen the thing with the machete bins the government is putting in around Melbourne and around the state. This doesn't seem like anything I've known Melbourne for in the 25 years I've lived in Australia. What's happening in Victoria, and what has changed that we're now seeing all of these really horrific crimes with these long knives and machetes and things like that? How do you get a handle on it? It's a serious question, and I want to hear your thoughts as the mayor of the big city there.
Yeah, James, I think there's obviously a complex series of factors that are probably leading to these higher crime levels. What I can tell you absolutely is the current crime rate is completely unacceptable, and what we've seen with knife crime is completely unacceptable. And, we need to see the government do more. Certainly for my part, at the City of Melbourne, we have stepped up and we're taking unprecedented action. I said at the election last year we were going to double the number of CCTV cameras across the city, and that's absolutely what I'm doing. I've also said we're going to introduce at the City of Melbourne, employed by the City of Melbourne, community safety officers. We're going to put extra security and safety presence on our streets, and they'll be rolling out from October. So this has never been done in Melbourne. Don't know if it's been done by local government in Australia before, but no one's going harder on city safety, law and order than me. And so for my part, in my municipality, the City of Melbourne, we are taking very, very firm action.
But it's hard to do that, I guess, if you don't have the state behind you, because they make the laws and they run the police. M.Canavan, you're a federal politician, obviously, but your state, Queensland, the Christofouli government came in very much on the promise of dealing with your own youth crime crisis there. How has that worked since the Christofouli government has taken power? And, what are the lessons from that, if any, that could apply maybe to Victoria or other places? I know we've got crime hotspots in New South Wales too.
Well, crime has started to come down here in Queensland, at least. It's still a major issue. It's one of the biggest complaints that comes through my office when we call people around town. Crime remains very elevated as an issue. I think the lessons are that, surprise, surprise, when you do pass tougher laws against crime, you typically get less crime. It's not that hard to work out. The other lesson, though, is that it's still frustrating here in Queensland after almost 25 years of uninterrupted Labor rule. A lot of the judges on the benches are pretty soft on particularly the juvenile criminals, and we end up with a merry-go-round of young kids just going in and out of court, back on the streets and commit crimes again. When you talk to the local police in these areas, it's typically no more than 20-odd kids that do the vast majority of the crime. But yeah, as I say, they're just completely cycled through a judicial system that has no real interest in helping those kids improve their lives or, of course, keep the wider community safe. I don't understand why we think that it's going to make sense to put these children back in the same gang environments where they've committed the crimes and that they'll somehow magically become better. It's bad for everybody. The new LNP government is also coming back to some of the regional boot camps, the youth boot camps, where some of these young children will be taken out of this environment and put in a more structured routine environment where the community is kept safe, and hopefully they get the kind of discipline that will make their lives better long term too.
Yeah, well, it's the sort of issue that really should be above politics, especially when kids are involved. Maybe Jacinta Allen can take a few lessons from what's happening in Queensland. Now, I want to move on, though, because there's more interesting stuff happening out of China, where they're reportedly up in arms over Richard Marles and Penny Wong, excuse me, having a meeting with their Japanese counterpart. They argued in the China Daily Mouthpiece that stirring up tensions and an attempt to provoke China. Now, M.Canavan, after the great Beijing love-in that Albanese had, 6 days, it seems like the Chinese are reverting to form here.
Look, I'd hope our government just simply ignores this kind of ridiculous threatening behaviour. Obviously, it's just a newspaper, not the government itself. But we know in China, of course, most of these things are coordinated. Shouldn't be surprising. Maybe I hope not. But perhaps the government seems to have had it's had love in its eyes the last few months with China, but the real China is making itself known here. As I say, it shouldn't be a shock to anyone. This is the kind of behaviour they've conducted in with many countries over the past few years. They've been bullies, there's no other word for it, trying to bully and threaten countries in their region. to act in accordance with their wishes. Now, this is why it should be very important that we do not tie and hitch our entire star, our economy, to China alone. And my biggest concern with what the Albanese government's done over the past year is they put so much emphasis on the Chinese relationship that they seem to be forgetting we should actually be diversifying away from that. We're probably already too linked in trade and investment to one country. It's just risky to have that. Why aren't they trying to develop more links with India, with Southeast Asia, with, of course, the Trump administration, which the Prime Minister is yet to meet the President of which. Those relationships, seem to have had a lack of investment, while the Prime Minister madly seeks to go into the embrace of China.
Well, that said, Matt, Nicholas Rees, I have noticed a bit of a rebalancing in some of the rhetoric from the Albanese government in the past few weeks, particularly as far as the United States is concerned. Do you think that they are alive to the danger of putting all their eggs in one basket, which it seemed like they were really so keen to do? Hey, we're increasing our trade, increasing our ties, increasing this, increasing that, because all of that can be turned off very quickly. We saw that under the Morrison government, and there's no reason why, they couldn't flick that switch again under Labor.
Look, I think the Albanese government is doing the sensible thing and taking a strong stand about Australia's place in the world, asserting our status as an independent nation, as a medium-sized power. That deserves to be respected. And, I think we've got to be careful that the current government doesn't repeat the mistakes of the Morrison government, where they went about, doing deliberately provocative things with major trade partners like China, and that didn't serve any good in the world other than to cause harm to valuable Australian exports. I mean, when, M.Canavan leaves the Billawheeler pub there this evening and he walks through the car park and he sees all those gleaming new, Ford Rangers there and all those folks in that community that he serves doing so well. Well, part of that is because of this terrific trade we've done with countries like China and like Japan over recent decades.
Can you just tell Nick exactly what provocative things did we do?
Politics,
be specific.
Not engage in silly histrionics.
Exactly what?
Cheap points.
Exactly. No,
Nicholas Rees, let's do this.
Exactly what provocative
hang on, gentlemen.
Did the Morrison government do?
Gentlemen, we're gonna have to leave it there. We've run out of time, but we will do this again very, very soon. Nicholas Rees, M.Canavan, always an absolute pleasure. We could stay here and fight all night about this stuff. And Matt, enjoy yourself there at Billawheeler Pub. Nicholas Rees, thank you so much for your time. Now, stick around because we still got a lot more Paul Murray Live tonight. After the break, Albo gets booed at the footy. Wow, what a surprise! Australians Graham Lloyd and former Labor advisor Darren Barnett join me to unpack it all after the break.
This program is brought to you by Harvey Norman. Shop in store and online. Best brands, best range, best prices guaranteed.